Hi, thanks for watching. Test cricket is back, which is great. Had 3 or 4 months away from the game. It's going to kick off again with New Zealand touring the West Indies. The West Indies actually didn't have a home summer last year into the Test matches, so it's great to see that that's been rectified. Um, One thing that's not so flash is that this was the last major team to come, so the West Indies aren't getting a full roster of teams coming. New Zealand was here 2 years ago, and talk about that series as the video progresses. Yeah, and they've also played last year, you might remember, in New Zealand, a very smacking win for the Kiwis. So I don't like the idea we're getting a sort of underclass of Test cricket nations that seem to play only each other: Sri Lanka, West Indies, New Zealand. But at any rate, we will press on and be thankful that we've got any Test matches at all. There's three of them to talk about. So let's look at the Windies first. So the Windies won against the Kiwis 2 years ago in the Caribbean. It was a two-test series that time, and it was in July 2012, and it was a series that I remember talking about that they were expected to win. At the time, the West Indies were considered something of an ascending minor power, and possibly looking at making a sort of mid-table run to 5-4, even 4 even. Um, and it was a series with a bit of scrutiny because it was probably the first series the West Indies have been favoured to win in quite a while. And they did. They won both a high and a low scoring match. They won both against batting last. They won them relatively comfortably by 5 and 9 wickets. So it was a good series for them. So they had a few jitters, but they were more or less in control for most of the series. Chris Gayle was critical. Basically won the first test for them single-handedly when he scored 214 runs and was dismissed just once. His figures against New Zealand are extremely strong. 75 average, 53.3 score percentage, and a century every 5 digs. So Gale's a critical wicket, but yeah, we're going to come back to that when we talk about New Zealand's opening bowling combination. Sunil Narayan was also huge. In fact, the West Indies bowling was basically carried by two guys, Narayan and Roach, who combined for 6 wickets a match each. So they took 12 wickets in the series each, so 24 in total. Narayan took them at 25.67 and Roach at 18.25. Now this is actually the last Test matches that Roach has played against major opposition, and he's been out of the team with various injuries. A shoulder injury was the last one. And he's a huge player for this team. If he plays, they're a different looking team. They've been really poor over the last 18 months or so. Shellacked against India, shellacked against New Zealand, both series that Roach missed. And he really provides some intimidation at the top of their attack. He's a really good pace bowler. He's not talked about a lot as one of the best in the world, but he really is. I know there's a lot of good ones, but Kemar Roach, particularly for his age, is one of the best pace bowlers in the world. Superb bouncer, very quick, moves the ball off the seam, and he's the spearhead of that attack. The Shane Shillingford situation with the throwing controversy might actually be a blessing in disguise for the West Indies, because it probably will force Narayan to play. Narayan had an absolutely abysmal series against Bangladesh, which you don't get to say very often about major test teams, players that play for major test teams, but he had a terrible series, average over 114 in 2 tests. But I think you can overreact to that. I mean, our numbers against New Zealand, which includes what we just talked about, but also includes as a test in New Zealand, 6 wickets a match at 24.33 in those 3 tests. So good record against the New Zealanders. Superb, as I've said before, superb record in shorter formats and at also first class level. Very young. Well, maybe not super young, maybe not as young as you think. I think he's about 25, but still young, especially for a slow bowler. And in Narayan and Roach, 2 years ago when we were talking about New Zealand, that was the big story. At the time, I think Narayan wasn't able to play because of IPL commitments. But those two are supposed to be the big sort of flagship players of this new West Indian team, along with Darren Bravo. So getting them 3 Test matches here, certainly there's an upside for the West Indies if Roach and Narayan both play, and they've been in and out of the team. But as well as Shillingford had sort of started to come around against the New Zealanders, I think in that first Test and against India, I think it would be a mistake to keep playing him. Narayan is the blue chip here, the big prospect, and we want to see more of Sunil Narayan. Pitches will probably play quite slow in this series, so there's a really good chance for him to thrive, and he'll get plenty of opportunities to do so against a team that doesn't necessarily play slow bowling particularly well. New Zealanders. Looking at that New Zealand series, let's just say the one in December of last year, killed him. It was actually 2-0. It could have easily been 3-0. In the first Test, the batting average for New Zealand was 52.92, and for the West Indies it was 36. They really did escape with a draw. You might remember Darren Bravo's double century, which is superb, and it's important that Bravo scores runs, and that's a really positive sign. But even so, they were in lots and lots of trouble following on in that match, I believe. Lost the second test by innings and 73 runs, and in the third they were bowled out for 103 in one of the customary West Indies collapses that we've all gotten used to. That seems to have been a feature of this team for 20 years. West Indies had problems at the top of the order. In fact, if anything, the bottom of the order played reasonably well. They got runs down the bottom of the order in that draw with Bravo. The West Indies average score after 5 wickets was 140, and obviously that's going to put you in a difficult position again and again. And you look at the batting card that's going to size up here, and we're looking at Craig Braithwaite probably again, Lendl Simmons probably again, Fooradin maybe. A lot of inexperienced guys. Chanderpaul rarely plays out a series at this point in his career. Again, it looks very fragile at the top, even with those Chris Gale numbers. And we'll talk about Boult and Southey, I promised, before we talk about the opening attack. Tim Southey, since January 1st of 2012, has been basically as good as any, well, maybe not Mitchell Johnson, but certainly in the sort of Stuart Broad class since that time. So 16 tests in that time, he's taking 4.5 wickets a match at 23.97. Really, really, really good numbers, and a lot of that's in Asia against India and Sri Lanka. Top class swing bowler. Chris Gale, I don't think is a good matchup for these guys at the moment. Guy likes to drive, ball moves in the air. Gale will be susceptible to Southey in particular. Trent Boult, giving them a left arm dimension as well. 82 wickets in the same time period, actually one more match. So 82 wickets, 33.7 wickets a match at 26.59. So those two guys there are providing serious artillery at the top of New Zealand's attack. 8.2 wickets a match in total at about 24s. And you can see where that 5 for 140 came from, and you can see the likelihood that might happen again. Even if Gale does get going, frankly, it's not like Gale's the kind of guy that can help other batsmen get going. He basically hits boundaries, and that's what he does. He doesn't rotate strike. He's not a good defensive player. They're not going to be able to, see out these guys and say 1 for 75 after 30 overs. It's just sort of not what West Indies do. They're going to play strokes, and Southey in particular is the kind of guy that really thrives in that situation. The two of those bowlers combined for 45 wickets against the West Indies, with 5.6 wickets a match at 18.62. That was in that 3-test series. That's basically the main takeaway going into this, and main thing to look at when you're talking about this series and who's going to win. Boult and Southey, they had no answer for them the entire series except for Darren Bravo. The pitches might be slower. There might be more slow bowling on show. But that doesn't look close, frankly. And I think when you talk about 18.62 and 45 wickets, and so they're taking 11 wickets between them. Yes, that might get worse. It's not going to get dramatically worse. And it's going to be very hard consistently over a 3-test series, which these days is a relatively long series, especially for these two teams, which play a lot of 2-test series. That looks like it's going to be a big problem. You're probably also aware, I always talk about Ross Taylor. This time I've got a good reason to. He scored 495 runs in that West Indian series. Was only dismissed twice. 60% score percentage and 1.7 century rate. So Taylor's probably batting as well as he ever has. His career average is now to about 47, which is, I think, surprising to most people. Okay, about the series. So I think the slow pitch thing has got some validity to it. I think that the West Indies do play better at home. I mean, they're not like world beaters at home, but they're a pretty atrocious road team. They're not a bad home team. So I do think they'll at least draw a match. And I could see them winning a match. I could see Camo Roach, especially if Camo Roach plays, taking a 6 for 80 kind of thing and knocking over the New Zealanders and giving the West Indies a chance. I can't see them winning the series, I don't think. I mean, New Zealand, you shouldn't be scared of taking New Zealand on the road here. Again, 1 in Sri Lanka. So if you win in Sri Lanka, you win in West Indies. So it's really 1-1 or 2-0 in the 3 tests. I'll tell you what, maybe we'll even hedge even more than that. I might go 1-0 New Zealand, which seems a bit odd, but New Zealand's batting's a lot better than it used to be. West Indies bat a lot better at home. It is possible to see Chris Gale make some noises, maybe a bit of a swan song for his career. 1-0, 2-0, I'm in between those two. But let's go, for the time being, 1-0 New Zealand. Thanks for watching. Soon we'll be looking at Sri Lanka going to England. Thank you.